Welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast. We're back with another game preview. This one on Sunday, November 16th. We've got Ohio State and Notre Dame. This game, I think, shapes up to be fun. This is a Notre Dame team that Cody and I, at least for the last couple of years, have been high on in terms of their long-term outlook. I still think they've got a little bit of a ways to go, but I think both teams, they play slower-ish paces. So I think this game could be close. I know Torvik projects it as like a 10-point spread for Ohio State. Granted, it is a home game for Ohio State, but I think there are avenues for this game to be closer than that. But Cody, what are your thoughts here initially on this game?
Yeah, I mean it's two teams that haven't really been tested at all. Notre Dame playing three teams outside of the top 240. Ohio State not really playing much better competition, and they've been tested a little bit. I mean, App State kind of gave them a little bit of a run, at least in the first half. IUND scored 102 on them in an 86 possession game, and Ohio State gave up 26 for 38 inside the arc. So, and that's kind of been the concern with Ohio State really all offseason. Everyone kind of figured the offense was going to be great. They have so much talent here. They have guys like Bruce Thornton and Devin Royal and Mobley coming back, and then adding the skilled front court of Christophe Tilly and Braeden Noel was always going to round out a really talented offense that they could all play off of each other at a high level. But it was always, what is the defense going to do, and particularly what is the front court defense of Tilly and Noel going to do? How often are they going to play together? Like, can they protect the rim at a power conference level? And obviously they've thrown some other guys in the mix, like an Amari Bynum, who, who's a nice energy guy at the four, can rebound. But besides that, he's not really providing a ton of rim protection either. I mean, this is a team that's 359th in block rate through three games, and they've played by game competition in all three. They're just unable to kind of create any sort of defensive plays at the rim. It's been, I haven't really watched a ton of them. I've watched a few minutes, and you can just kind of tell, like, there's really no rim deterrent on this roster. But ultimately, for Notre Dame, like, who's really going to exploit that consistently? They don't really get to the rim at a super high clip. Like, the guys that they're using in high usage roles, or the guys that are getting like a decent volume of the shots, are all kind of on the perimeter and in the mid range. Like, and it starts with Markus Burton, 29% usage. And I mean, he's gotten to the rim some, but ultimately he's a guy that likes to operate on the perimeter and in the mid range. And like a guy like Braeden Shrewsberry, he's all on the perimeter, all catch and shoot, running off screens, stuff like that. And we need to see some of these other guys like Carson Tout kind of operate inside and assert his physicality. He's obviously been unbelievable on the glass, but maybe he can work. They can work through him in the post a little bit, and try to make this Ohio State defense shrink a bit, and then they can create some open threes. And then you look at the freshman class was like highly regarded, or one of the better freshman classes that Notre Dame's really ever had. And the fact that Shrewsberry was able to go out and get these guys was pretty impressive. But I guess the returns on those guys so far haven't been the greatest. And I think it's particularly a guy with like Jalen Harrelson. He had a really rough first game, and since then I think he's been pretty good. And I think he's going to be a guy that needs to have the ball in his hands, getting downhill and really putting pressure on the rim, which I think he can do. And I think he could be, if he gets the minute share, he's only playing 31% of the minutes so far this season. But if he's able to, stay on the floor for extended time, be able to get downhill and either create as a scorer or a facilitator, I think that can be really big for this Notre Dame team to kind of to break this game open. But ultimately, there are issues on both sides. There's rim protection issues on both sides. And I do think this is a game that plays a little bit slower, and it's going to be, who executes more often in a half court setting. I do think both teams are going to execute at a high level, but if a team goes through a lull, are they able to handle it and be able to make up for it with their defense?
Yeah, I mean, just a stat here while you were talking about Ohio State and their lack of rim protection. I believe they actually only have two players that have recorded a block through three games, and one of them is Bruce Thornton. Him and I believe they're at one block apiece total between him and Tilly. So rim protection is not a strength here. And like you said, like Markus Burton's not going to put a ton of pressure on the rim. But for me, I had Jalen Harrelson down here as an X factor in this game. He's played in 2 games, as you said, but in those 2 games, he's played 19 minutes, an average of 19 minutes, and averaged 10.5 points in those minutes, scoring it at 61.5% field goal percentage. I think he can be a guy that can put some pressure on the rim here. As he's 6'7", good sized guy, athlete, 6'7", 220. I think he can put some real pressure here on the rim with his athleticism, and then Carson Tout as well, right? Like this Ohio State team, they've been good on the defensive glass, 41st in defensive rebound rate. But I'm just not, like you said, they haven't been tested. I'm not that high on this front court. I think that number is going to get worse. And I think this is a game where it could, like you mentioned, Carson Tout has been absurd on the offensive glass, 28.6% offensive rebound rate. I think we may see a bunch of offensive rebounds out of him in this game. Ohio State relies heavily on Christoph Tilly and Brandon Noel for their front court rebounding. And, I'm not a super believer in their ability there. I think that Notre Dame has some avenues in that area to kind of stay in this game. But of course, like on the other side, like you said, Ohio State, they lead the country right now in 2-point field goal percentage. And Notre Dame just doesn't really have a rim anchor, anyone to keep them out. And, you have the experience of Bruce Thornton. You've got John Mobley, who's obviously super experienced. You've got Devin Royal, of course, and Tilly as well. So, I think Ohio State can kind of get what they want on this end against Notre Dame's defense. But I also think there are avenues for Notre Dame to score the ball as well on Ohio State's defense lacking rim protection. So for Notre Dame, I think it's really just going to be, can you put pressure on the rim? Can you create extra opportunities? Can you generate a bunch of catch and shoot threes if you want to win this game? And Ohio State's willing to give them up, right? They're 274th in 3-point rate defense. This Notre Dame team is shot at 42.5% from behind the arc thus far. So they're going to get their opportunities, and I think they may get even better ones if they're able to get on the offensive glass. So for me, those are the 3 keys for Notre Dame. I think this game, like I said at the outset, I think this can be closer than we think, because I think it is going to be played at a little bit of a slower pace. But I do think that, like, Ohio State being at home, Bruce Thornton being the veteran that he is, it kind of puts Ohio State with a leg up here. But Cody, what do you think for Ohio State to win this game? What do you think they need to do?
Yeah, and obviously it's going to be tough. I know there's a projected 10-point spread out there, but Markus Shrewsberry as a dog is a very, is a very dangerous. It makes his team very dangerous, and he's always kind of been good in this spot. And for Ohio State, it's just taking advantage of the rather poor backcourt defense of Markus Burton and Braeden Shrewsberry. And obviously, I mean, you have one of the best backcourt creators in the country in Bruce Thornton. You have one of the best, I guess, perimeter shot makers, like one of the guys with the deepest range in the country in John Mobley. And if they're able to really have their way with a Markus Burton, Braeden Shrewsberry backcourt and, make their shots in the mid range, because Notre Dame is a team that will deny the rim. They play a very conservative coverage. They take you out of transition and they really pack it in, play more of a shell and force you to win with your dribble creation. And there are obviously some really good candidates on this Ohio State offense to do so, the leader being Bruce Thornton. And I think I kind of view it as more of a wash in the front court. I think Ohio State has the more talent, and I think they have potential to take advantage of Carson Tout when he's playing the 5. And it does seem like he's going to play a decent amount of minutes at the 5. It's like him playing next to Garrett Sundra. And one thing I am happy about is with Notre Dame is Les Kebajai minutes. I mean, he has a 4-year sample size playing under Markus Shrewsberry of just not being that impactful of a basketball player really on both ends of the floor. at this level. And I do like that they've kind of filtered him out a little bit and thrown Carson Tout more in the mix as that two-way rebounder. He can really, establish his dominance on both ends of the floor. And I think that gives Notre Dame a higher floor long term. But ultimately, Ohio State just kind of taking advantage with their dribble creation is kind of going to be their path to victory.
Yeah, I agree. So going into game picks here, I do think Ohio State with that tandem of Bruce Thornton, John Mobley. I do think they get the job done here at home. Like I said, I think it is a little bit closer than that projected 10-point spread. I would say Ohio State wins. We'll call it by 7. But like I said, I think it's a little bit of a slower paced game. I know Torvik actually projects this pretty high. They projected at 83 to 72. I'm going to say that Ohio State wins like 70 to 63.
Yeah, I really want to say Notre Dame just out executes Ohio State late in this game. Markus Shrewsberry is I'll just say it, he's a massively better coach than Jake Diebler for at least what they've proven over the course of their careers. I think they have a massive edge there. And if Shrewsberry is able to keep this game in the half court, if they're able to play this at 63 to 65 possessions and just make it a battle of offensive execution down the stretch, I do think they have a real chance of winning this game. But, Ohio State being at home, having just a little more offensive talent, a little more offensive punch late in the game. And I think Notre Dame's defense can be a little bit leaky, particularly on the perimeter. I'll take Ohio State to win this game. And it will be a lower possession game, in my opinion, but I think the efficiency is going to be pretty high. I'll say Ohio State wins this 79 to 76.
Okay. Should be a fun game. We'll see what happens down the stretch of this one. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching the Mainly Hoops podcast.